Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 5-game Major League Baseball slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? At the end of the video, I will also give you some of my top bets for today for the DraftKings Sportsbook for baseball, only including the games that are on this particular slate, so do keep that in mind. With that said, let's go ahead and get started here. I do have some core plays. Brendan Rodgers for Colorado, Jake Berger for Miami, and Outman for the Dodgers. We'll get into our pitchers here first, so we'll start with the Luzardo for Miami. He's a boomer bust play, but he's had 3 games over 20 fantasy points in the past 6 games, but 2 games under 9 in that stretch. It's not an ideal matchup, but it is okay. He's capable of a solid game here, and if he can get the win, that would definitely help boost him up. But he's only averaged 12 fantasy points a game over the last 10, which is a little bit of a concern here. But this slate is really limited on pitching. So moving to Jordan Montgomery for Texas, he has an interestingly tough matchup here against Seattle. However, he did do good against them last game out where he scored 27 fantasy points. He's capable of that again here, but if he can get over 18, that would be a success here. He's a guy I really do like today as a pretty solid option. His win-loss record on the season isn't great, but he's been solid throughout the year for the most part, averaging 18 fantasy points over the last 10 games as well. He does have a low floor, so just keep that in mind. Then we'll look at Bassett for Toronto. Aaron Judge has been hitting home runs, but not as much. Not much else is happening for the Yankees, giving him some upside. He has some rough games, but he does have a good K rate and should be good enough here to pay off and score a win. He's also averaged 18 fantasy points a game over the last 10, and he faced the Yankees recently with a 26-point game, so I do think he's a viable option on the slate. And then for kind of a value play, we'll look at David Peterson, who's been very inconsistent throughout the season, but he is high. He does have some upside in this matchup. If he can score over 15 fantasy points, that would pay off here. But he has a 10 to 20 fantasy point range today, and he will get because he will likely give up an earned run or two, as he hasn't really had any zero earned run games in a while. But he is capable of a 15 to 20 fantasy point game on the slate. Moving to our catchers here, we're going to look at Will Smith first for the Dodgers. Now, he's been inconsistent throughout the recent times, but he is capable of a home run, and while he hasn't had a big game lately, he has that potential. He is very expensive, though, so he does need to hit a home run to pay off. I do like Kirk quite a bit for Toronto. I think Toronto's an interesting stack today, and he draws some good home run metrics for this matchup. He's a guy that doesn't play every game, but when he does play, he does have some potential, though he is boomer bust. But he has hit the ball decent throughout the season, even though it's been a little bit streaky lately. He doesn't strike out much, so is this a matter of him getting a good hit and paying off here at a very minimum price? Moving to first base, we'll look at Freddie Freeman. Now, Freddie has hit the ball very well recently. He's had 2 home runs over the last 10 games. He's actually had 2 straight home run games in Colorado. I look for that to continue here as he's got a great matchup in this matchup, but he's going to be hard to roster as a result. Vlad Jr. is very close to being a core play as he's hit 4 home runs over the last 10 games, averaging over 10 fantasy points a game. That said, he's had some zeros too, so do keep that in mind. But he is capable of a really solid game here, and he's got a great matchup here against Weaver. And then Brandon Belt is kind of a contrarian play, is a cheap option. He's also been pretty good in certain situations, and I do like him in this one. His fantasy points per game is a little bit lower than I'd like, but he is capable of a good game here. And he doesn't need a home run to pay off, but he's probably likely going to need one in order to score a decent amount of fantasy points, no matter what his price is. Then we'll look at Nick Hornier for the Cubs. Here we go. Sorry. For the Cubs here against Atlanta. Now, the Cubs have some upside in this matchup. He's hitting the ball decently well recently, but he does need to hit pretty well and get a multi-hit game to really pay off here. But he's had a few of those lately, and he has some potential. I do suspect this game is going to be high scoring, and so I do like his upside. Then we'll look at Simeon for Texas. Now, he's been up and down throughout the year, but right now he's hitting the ball really well with 5 home runs in the last 10 games. He has some really good metrics here as he's had 4 home runs in the last 4 games. He also has multi-hit potential, and he should be able to pay off at this price point with a home run or even just a couple good hits. Ozzy Albies has also hit the ball well for Atlanta recently. He's hitting 422 over the last 10 games. He's had some ridiculous games, even without home runs. He is capable of home runs, though, as he's hit them pretty well this season. I do like his upside in this matchup and multi-hit potential as well. And then Brendan Rodgers, who I do think is a core play today. He's had a nice advantage at home, and he's also hitting the ball really well over the last 10 with 3 home runs in that stretch. He's also been okay against the Dodgers this series, and so I do like his potential here, and he's nice and cheap and helps you pay up at other positions. Maybe at third base, we'll look at Max Muncy. Muncy has had some really good upside recently. He does draw some good metrics here. He has home run potential, but his batting average has been inconsistent throughout the year. That said, he's had a couple multi-hit games recently, which gives me some hope for him here. Austin Riley is virtually the same price, and he has a really good matchup as well. He's hit nearly 300 over the last 10 games. He's had a couple rough games last two, but he is capable of a good game, and he has home run potential in this one. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And then Jake Berger, who is a core play for me from Miami. He's just too cheap for what he's doing. He's hitting the ball very well with 382 average over the last 10. He has nice home run potential and multi-hit game potential, and he's cheap enough where he doesn't need to hit a home run to pay off here, but he's definitely capable. Maybe at third base, we'll look at Bo Bichette. For Toronto. Now, he's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw some home run utility here, and he's had some really good multi-hit games lately, though he's a little pricey for his. I was really hoping he'd be around $4,500 today, but he's a little bit higher than I like, but it's okay today on a small slate like this. Tovera is also in play. He's been really solid for the Rockies at home, though he has kind of had a couple rough games here in the Dodgers series. That said, he's got a great matchup today, and he has some good games throughout the season against the Dodgers, and I look for him to have some stolen base potential today as well. Maybe in the outfielders, we're going to start with some Dodgers here with JD Martinez being the top option for the Dodgers at $5,700. He's hitting the ball very well with 5 home runs over the last 10. Surprisingly enough, he hasn't had one in this Colorado series yet, as he's only played 2 games, but he is capable of a big game here. Though he has been striking out a lot in this series, he does draw home run potential. Ronald Acuna is Ronald Acuna. He's now in the 40-60 club, or 40-70 club with the stolen bases, as he had 2 stolen bases yesterday. He's been scoring fantasy points in crazy amounts. I hope he can hit a couple more home runs and get a couple more stolen bases before the season's over. He looks like he's in prime position to do that today, and this Cubs game should be a high-scoring game on the slate. Outman for the Dodgers also in play. He's hitting the ball very well with 3 home runs over the last 10. He hit one yesterday. He's had a good series against the Rockies, with 2 of the 3 games being over 16 fantasy points. He doesn't need to hit a home run either. He's had 7 hits in the last 2 games. I really think he's a great option. And then Ian Happ for the Cubs, also in play. He's averaging a 341 batting average over the last 10, including 10 fantasy points a game. He has really nice upside in this matchup, and I think the pitching for the Braves are going to have some issue with him in this game, as they have throughout the series. And then Jason Hayward for the Dodgers. He's been inconsistent, but he does have home run potential. He is a boomer bust play, but he's priced cheap enough that you can consider him. And then Mike Tauchman for the Cubs. He is also a guy that's kind of a boomer bust play, just dirt cheap. He does have some low end upside today for home runs, but more looking for a multi-hit game from him. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. Oh, let me get into the bets. So I have 4 bets that I'm going to consider today. One being the Toronto game. Toronto is currently has a money line of around 180 over the Yankees. I think that's a really solid option. I think that Toronto's going to have a lot of upside in this matchup, and I like their potential, especially with the hitting. Then we'll look at Miami and the New York Mets. Let me pull this over here so I can show you that. Sorry. Miami money line over the New York Mets, currently at 135 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and I think he's got a really solid opportunity to have a good game. Miami has a really good opportunity to win this game, and so I do think they're a viable option. Though they do feel a little high risk. I think it's a really good betting game. And then for the Cubs and the Atlanta game, over 9.5 runs is currently minus 115 on the DK Sportsbook. I really do like Atlanta's potential today, but I also think the Cubs have a lot of advantages in this game, and that's going to give the Cubs an opportunity to score a lot of runs. So getting over 9.5 runs today seems actually a little bit low. I think it's going to be around 10.5, 10 to 11 on the slate. So I think that's a really pretty safe bet, to be honest. And then for the Cubs game and Atlanta again, I have the Cubs at plus 1.5 versus Atlanta. I do think Atlanta might drop this one. But given the Cubs are 1.5 in a high-scoring game, I think both teams have a potential, and I could see like a 7-6 or even an 8-7 game. So something like that looks in play, and I think the Cubs could win. But it's definitely going to be a tight, high-scoring game in my opinion. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.